Hello everyone and welcome back to Local Liberty. This is Brian and Shane. We are back after a long break with another official episode.
Long break for an official episode.
Yes.
We've been plenty of short videos.
That's absolutely right. A little more in-depth, written up, hopefully slightly more coherent for you guys to learn something
Brian
from.
wrote a script.
Didn't get as much time to prepare for it as I hoped, but that seems to always be the case. Our topic for today is a revisit on an oldie but goodie, something that you will hear me talk about all day long because it's that important, and that is the concept of property. I want to tie that into a couple current events that recently have been occurring. One in our area, which we will discuss, I'll hold up the paper if I can get this up for you guys, is a bone of contention. And you probably can't read that article, but what it is a local business owner that has ran afoul of our wonderful planning and zoning commission, zoning laws, and all that fun stuff.
It's scary. This person is criminal scum. He needs to be put in jail. This is wrong, and we're going to talk about it.
We will set the record straight.
Exactly.
And then the second thing is another recent event. This is on the other side of the country, out in Houston. We have something that happened last week was the HERO Act, which, anything that's named Patriot Act, Freedom Act, this is the HERO Ordinance. Your spider sense should start tingling when you hear things that are named like this. And the HERO is an acronym for Houston Equal Rights Ordinance, which was just recently repealed on referendum in Houston last week. Sounds like a horrible thing to repeal equal rights. That's terrible, but we're going to dive into that a little bit more. So, back to property. Just a quick review of an old Essentials of Liberty episode that is so near and dear to my heart. My definition, when I came across this and I sort of latched onto it, this is the right definition for me for the term property, is to put it in two classes. You have our primary, most important set of property, which is basically our self-ownership. It's our mind, our body, and our time. Those are the most near and dear things that we own. And by ownership, I mean we have exclusive right, we have exclusive use of those things, and no one else has a higher claim on them than we do. And you could say we have the only claim on them. And then the secondary set of property, which ties into the more common definition, is the product of our time, our mind, and our body, and that's all the stuff that we accumulate. That's our roll of toilet paper or our capital equipment in our garden. This is property as well, but this is a secondary set of property that is derived from employing. I purchased this after employing my time and my mind working. I earned money, I turned it into this tool for my garden. So this is also my property. And why I express property in this way, it's because once you start telling somebody, say, hey, because you signed the social contract, that means
when I was an infant, I signed it.
The day you were born, that means you need to cough up X percentage of your income. And really what they're saying is, I therefore have a claim on 35% of your time. In a claim that you can't resist. And if you're foolish enough to resist, very bad things are going to happen to you. So I like to tie, or someone will say, if you want the privilege of owning a car in the state of Connecticut, you're going to have to pay $800 a year in taxes on it. Basically what they're saying is, we own a portion of the time and body and energy that you put in to acquire that car. We meaning the state, we have a claim on it. So I like to tie the term property back to the real source of the property. Is that property, this doesn't exist on its own. Somebody had to create this. Somebody had to forge this steel and weld this together, and then I had to trade with them. So somebody put their time into this. I put my time towards somebody else through this wonderful medium of exchange called money, and I acquired this object. So again, if you deny that a person does not have an absolute claim on their property like this, that means that you say that they don't have an absolute claim to self-ownership of their own person. And that to me is the best way that I can describe the concept of property. So, And then this is another. This sort of ties into the concept of ownership, and we can think about what are the different ways that. Again, let's use my wheel hoe. What are the different permutations we can go through for how this can be owned? We can basically say that I, as an individual, I own this, or we can say nobody owns it, or we can say everybody owns it, or some mix of the three of those. But basically, the second two, that nobody owns it, well then who can actually employ this? Who can use this in their garden if nobody owns it? Because somebody else could say, well no, that you can't own that, you don't have a right to it, so it's not yours, you can't use it. And then or that's just as problematic as saying everybody owns it, because who do I ask permission to? I go to every single person that I've ever met and say, hey, can I use this? Or no, the only real way that property works is tying it to an individual, because as we've talked about many times throughout this show, individuals are the only entity that exists. To say that everybody owns it is kind of tying it into the society owns it or the public owns it. And
well, you can pull back on that everyone owns it, the public use, to a communal use where a small community of people agree to use something together, but they've all agreed
as individuals.
Right.
They agree to,
But now those individuals have access to something that the community owns.
But the community formed as individual, independent acting persons that came together. That is not the same thing as this guy down here.
Right.
That's social contract.
That's different than that everyone owns it.
Right. Yes. Exactly. So that's okay. So that's that. Then just again a little more review. We've already covered this. How does property? Where does the concept of property? Where does it really exist? Or I'm saying, how well does it do in our culture today, in our society? We've talked about these at great length, the different kinds of taxes we have: income tax, property tax, sales tax. Clearly, all of these things basically just deny the concept of property. That somebody can say, you owe me $50,000, you owe me $2, you owe me a penny, and you owe me this because I own a part of you. The property angle to that is totally ignored.
Or even usage fees, licensing fees. They're basically a tax before you can get something. You get that car on the road to pay for registration, pay for the insurance laws, go down to the DMV, I have to waste my time, right? So that's a fee beforehand. Right. It's like, wait, before we give you the privilege of doing X, Y, or Z, pay us money.
Pay us a tax.
Exactly. So it can be either before or after you acquire the object, or you can get paid before, and then you keep paying taxes on it after you have it, right?
Yep.
So all stages of ownership, and then you want to get rid of it. Sometimes you have to pay a tax for that.
Want to renounce your citizenship?
Whoa.
That's going to cost you.
Yep.
And now some of you may be thinking, well, without all these taxes, how are we going to pay for X, Y, and Z? How are we going to build the roads, whatever? That is a fair question, and that is something for a totally different topic. That's a great question to ask, and I'd say let's save that for another episode of how we pay for things without forcing people to pay for them against their will. We'll come back to that one later. Now, on to the other
Remind us if we don't in the comment section.
Thank you. The other two forms of how property is, the concept of property is broken and it's attacked, is what we're going to talk about today more is zoning, and then anti-discrimination laws. Zoning is in reference to this painting that we were discussing, and then anti-discrimination goes back to the Civil Rights Act, which is like the sacred cow that everybody believes, I should say a lot of people believe is some wonderful thing. And that was in the 60s, and the world may have been a different place, but we're going to fast forward that to 2015 in Houston, and discrimination laws have taken on a different form, and people are reacting to it differently. So we're going to explore those two a little bit more. But I would like to jump in over to our Chronicle article. This is from Friday, October 30th, 2015, and the title is, "The Mural is Still a Bone of Contention." And basically what we have here is we have a local business. This is Michaud's Flooring on Route 66 in Columbia. By the way, so this is not in Windham. This is all taking place in Columbia, and this individual and this business is dealing with the town of Columbia, which is right next door to Wyndham. This place is only 5-minute drive from where we are right now. And basically what we have is a business on a busy road that has painted a large mural on their side of their building.
Psychopaths. I can't believe these people. Painting a mural.
We're going to get into the depravity of what they've done.
Indeed, Brian.
And what should be the proper response. But basically what we have is a family-owned business since 1958, and the owner has painted a mural on the side of his building that is approximately 970 square feet. And I'm going to go to some more depth in the article here. And what we have is, let's see where we can pick this up. I'm just going to read a couple of paragraphs for you briefly so we get a sense of what's going on.
Get a sense of the horror that is occurring in a town nearby.
Land use rules state that total wall signs allowed may not be greater than 199 square feet in this area. Town officials have said the mural square feet facing Route 66 is 970 square feet, while the lettering measures 150 square feet. So that is that's the allegation, basically.
Wow.
That's what that's the deed that has been done, and that's how the government has got involved.
I already feel unsafe. This is already a danger to my community.
It's gonna get worse.
Okay.
You have so you have somebody that's put some paint, some chemical on, I'm assuming, a brick or concrete building. They've painted.
Wow.
And it's exceeded the threshold for an accepted size of painting by, let's see if I can do some quick math, which is always a bad on air, 771 square feet.
771 square feet, Brian. That's astonishing. That's scary.
All right, like I said, it's going to get worse. Now, let's get into the owner's side of this. So, we're fair. We're going to explore both sides. Cray, who's the business owner, that's the gentleman's last name. Cray said, "It is not a sign, but a beautiful mural that serves as a tribute to my wife's parents, and the individual in the corner of the mural is my stepson and is the third generation of the family. He said it serves as a memorial to its founders and a beacon to its bright future for small family-owned business." This is getting worse.
Yeah, it's wow.
The mural was painted by Craig Hans DeZeken during the summer of 2012. So it's been there for 3.5 years now, terrorizing the folks that drive by on Route 66.
Right. Luckily, the government officials stepped in, right before any more damage could be caused.
So now, Mr. DeZeken, during the summer of 2012, an Eastern Connecticut State University fine arts major saw this as an opportunity to paint his first mural. He received donated paint from O.L. Willard Hardware, another local business in town, and assistance from fellow art students and teachers at the university. So, folks, that right there that's the statement of guilt against this business owner. This is the act that he has committed, and now let's see where our friendly local government has taken it. I want to see the exact words. Okay, well, I'll just get basically what the court has done, or what the town has done, is issued a foreclosure court order. And I wanted to get a textbook definition of what exactly foreclosure means. We all think we know what understands commonly, especially things like, talking about real estate meltdown and whatnot. But what foreclosure is, and this is another handy Google definition for us.
Thank you, Google overlords.
A foreclosure is a court order issued on behalf of a lender or lien holder depriving a defaulting borrower or lienee of his or her ownership rights to the mortgaged property. So, I have no clue whether or not this business owner has an actual mortgage with a bank on this property, but let's say they do or whether they don't. The fact that the town is issuing a foreclosure notice on this business is basically the town saying, hey, we own your business, and you're not playing by our rules, so hand the business over. Now, here's a little more detail of how this is played out. Now meaning now is one of the officials in the town of Columbia, I'm going to assume, now said the foreclosure results from the Crays. That'd be the family that owns this business. The Crays ignoring zoning orders and failing to pay zoning fines. She said the Crays owe $5,524 at a rate of $50 a day for 3 months in 2014, plus interest and possible legal fees, which have not yet been determined. So basically, here's the situation as I see it, Shane. We have a arrogant, plucky business owner that thinks that he can go ahead and paint whatever the hell he wants on the side of his own building. And then, after the town rightly corrects him and says, hey, you exceeded the size of that building by 771 square feet, you better fix it. He has the audacity to ignore $5,500 worth of fines. You know what this sounds like to me? This sounds like an individual that has shown a unwillingness to play by the rules, and the only thing that I could foresee coming out of this, assuming this owner is going to continue his obstinance, I think they're going to need an MRAP down Route 66 in Columbia.
That's the only logical solution to this problem, Brian, is deploying the MRAP. As you know, I've talked about this before, the MRAP keeps us all safe at night. I would not be able to sleep at night without the MRAP, and now that I know about this business, this business flaunting the rules, blatantly, flagrantly flaunting the rules, it disgusts me. So we need to deploy that MRAP, blow that shit up, and solve this problem.
And of course, it would be a travesty to see this building knocked down, but the town, apparently since they can file a foreclosure on this building, they do actually own it, so it's within their rights, and well, the painting is just too big.
Right. And why else would you deploy the MRAP unless you use it for violence and destruction? That's the point of it, right? So
and intimidation. And we cannot have people painting things larger than is specified in the zoning laws, because that is a clear and
present danger.
What's the right word? A step that cannot be undone towards anarchy, folks. If we have people painting outside of the zoning law specifications. So that's basically my take on this. Now, if I can kind of slap myself in the head a little bit and get out of sarcasm mode for a minute and give a sincere message to Mr. Cray, I am sorry that the town is putting you through this. I am ashamed that our locality, our country, the whole shebang, that this is what we've come down to. That somebody who's spent, I'm going to assume you've spent your life providing valuable and voluntary service to others, and that's the only reason why you've had a family business in existence since 1958, that now you've decided to beautify your property, and maybe the people that drive by think it's beautiful, maybe they think it's ugly. That doesn't really matter. Chances are, I think most of them, as Roger mentioned, most folks have been writing in saying, we like the sign, why the hell are you bothering this person? I just want to say I'm sorry that you have to deal with this, and I hope this is a lesson to anybody else out there that, you know, kind of has that mentality of there ought to be a law, there ought to be a this, there ought to be a that. This is what you get. It's basically saying there ought to be a law against people improving their buildings. There ought to be a law against people painting things. Well, guess what? What that means is if you exceed the stated thresholds, and if you happen to piss off the wrong person at town hall, or you happen to just do something that got somebody's attention in the wrong way, well, guess what? There goes your business, there goes your life savings, there goes all of the honest hard work you've done simply because you have broken some utterly and ridiculously arbitrary rule.
At some point in time, somebody came up with this rule, and they probably, maybe to them, they had good intentions. Maybe something happened in the past. It's difficult for me to imagine how this rule came to be, but maybe something happened, and there's a situation where this was bad, blah, blah, blah. Well, let's make this rule, but let's make these regulations. This is a good thing. And what happens is these regulations get put in place, people forget about them, most people aren't affected by them. But if you happen to be that unfortunate person, like Mr. Cray here and his family, think about those people. Think about what his life is like right now. About painting a sign, a mural, whatever you want to call it. That's another thing I don't like about this. I don't care if it's a sign. I don't care if it's a mural. He shouldn't have to defend himself on those grounds. Those grounds are irrelevant. The rule makes no sense. Who cares? It's his building. He can paint wherever he wants. He wants to be a sign, it's a sign. He wants to be a mural, it's a mural. Right? He's trying to use his legal defense to protect himself because he has no other recourse. He has to do what he has to do, but he shouldn't even have to go that far. The rule's stupid. You're hurting people. It's not helping anyone. No one's benefiting from this. Get rid of the rule. Get rid of the law. It doesn't do anything. All it does is cause harm. I don't understand. Why would you support this rule? Why would you support this law? What is it doing for you? I don't get it. It's baffling to me.
Here's what I would say.
It's rules for the sake of rules. That's what it is. It's law for the sake of law.
If I can put on my authoritarian thinking cap for a minute, and here I think this is similar to 10 minutes ago I said, well, if you're questioning who's going to build the roads if we don't have taxes to pay for cars and income taxes and all that, in a similar vein, somebody's probably thinking, well, if we don't have rules to dictate what and how big and how things are painted on the side of buildings, what's going to prevent somebody from painting a 55-foot tall naked woman on the side of a building or some other horrifying concept? Basically, what's going to prevent anarchy? What's going to prevent somebody from painting something disastrous on the side of a building? And let me answer that one. That one we can't answer in this episode. Let's just assume for a brief argument's sake that instead of this lovely mural, the Crays painted, some scene of a bunch of baby seals being clubbed on the head, and people that drove by were bothered by this. Some folks might say, "Hey, that's pretty cool," or maybe they think it's a joke. But plenty of people could reasonably be understood to say, "You know what? That sign bothers me. I don't like that." You have an option to. You can basically say, "You know what? In order to prevent stuff like that from happening, we need a zoning law. We need decency laws. We need a law that does X, Y, and Z." That's option A, we'll call it. And option A is a straight line path to this newspaper article that says somebody painted a sign and it's just too big and, well, we think it's a beautiful sign, but the rules are the rules and sorry, we can't have it. So if that's your solution to preventing somebody from painting about baby seal, clubbing baby seals on the side of their building, then you're going to end up with the bone of contention. It will be an endless bone of contentions as the rules become more and more arbitrary. The number of rules never decreases. And it's a road that leads to nobody being able to exercise their own property in a legitimate way.
Also, from a practical sense, option A has already failed. If you support this measure, and if you say, I want to support this, I want people to be prevented from doing X, Y, or Z, it already showed it didn't work. Here's the story. Here's the guy that made the painting. Your option failed. It didn't work. People are going to live their lives and do what they want anyway. Sorry, that's the reality.
That's a good point.
So your option is already doesn't make sense because it doesn't work. It's not doing what you want. And
that's because because people intuitively recognize right from wrong.
Right.
And painting
something
on a building is not wrong. It's just not. Painting anything on a building, even clubbing a baby seal, is not wrong. So then that leads us to option B. Option B is somebody paints a disturbing picture on the side of their building and you drive by every day and you see it and you just don't like it. Option B can take many forms. The first one would be drive a different way to work, but that's really not, I would consider, a full option. The real way to redress this would be to, one, do not utilize this business's services anymore. If you're sufficiently upset by a painting of a baby seal, let this person know of a baby seal being clubbed. Let this person know. Say, hey, I think that painting is ridiculous and I'm never going to spend another dime at your store and I'm going to tell all my friends to never spend another dime at your store.
Boycotting, protest, those are all legitimate avenues and recourses.
And of course, and like I said, that's the more... That's the more involved option than just the basic one is just disassociate yourself with them. You don't like their painting, don't support the business. If it's the only way to get to work, then I don't know, use the sun visor or something to block the heinous picture driving down the road. But basically the bottom line is in a society that's built on real freedom, It would be the ability to opt out. That is real freedom. You don't like what person A is doing, you disassociate with them. For a business, that means you do not patronize the business. It's like a strip club. If you really don't like a strip club in your town, do not give them your money. Encourage your friends to not give you money. Say, hey guys, I think having a strip club in town is wrong for reasons X, for A, B, C, and D, and E, and persuade others to not support this business. And what do you know? If people in the town don't support the business, it's gonna go away. Nobody was threatened with $5,000 fines, which of course the implication between this $5,000 fine and this foreclosure notice is, we've talked about this before, Shane. He ignores the $5,000 fine, say, okay, well, we're going to put a foreclosure order on your ass. You ignore the foreclosure order for the next couple years, eventually the MRAP is going to be parked in front of your driveway.
Men with guns will come.
That is the progression. That's how this works. So that's probably all I've got to say on this one. Again, look for peaceful solutions to solve your problems, and do this independently on your own. And as I've been encouraged to hear, others have been writing into the paper and expressing their doubts that this is just ridiculous. That's how this problem gets resolved. When we talk about, ignoring a business owner that doesn't do something that you like, that goes the same for ignoring a planning and zoning commission or something that is doing things that you feel are wrong. You want to talk about right or wrong? Fining somebody $5,000 for putting paint on a side of a building, that is wrong.
And I just want to emphasize, please get out of the mindset of a rule is a rule, a law is a law. No. If a rule is a rule, a law is a law, if it's bad, you have no obligation to follow it, and we should not punish people who break those laws. There's no reason. Breaking a law that's bad, that's hurting people, is no reason to punish someone. If you're a judge, if you're on a zoning board of appeals, if you're on a committee, you're like, well, they did break this rule. Oh, well, they did break this law. They're technically in violation. But you know what? Yeah, forget. The law is stupid. And we talk about jury nullification sometimes. So if you're ever on a jury and someone does something, they broke some arbitrary law that doesn't make any sense. Yeah, they broke the law. We have clear evidence they broke the law. But you know what? It's stupid. So they're free. Not guilty. Have a nice day.
That's a way to improve our future. Absolutely. So, all right. So let's move on past zoning laws. That was a good discussion about a local event that caught my eye a few weeks ago in the newspaper. Let's move on to anti-discrimination. So anti-discrimination laws. This is a little more contentious than zoning laws. Most folks are going to be under the opinion that, zoning laws are stupid. But anti-discrimination laws are going to be a little more debatable on people are going to value them or value their existence or not. I like to bring things back to what I believe is the root of issues, and at the root of all discrimination or anti-discrimination laws are property, is the concept of property. And for me, the concept of property is absolute. And I came across this term online a few weeks ago, and I don't know if this was meant to be a pejorative or not, but it was basically referred to a group of people. This was in the the anarcho-capitalist Facebook group and whatnot. Or describe people as propertarians, and excuse me, that's not a bad word. Because basically, you hear some folks in circles, and these are kind of the circles that I think similarly to. They're always talking about property. And call me, I can live with that term, call me a propertarian. And how does discrimination tie back to property? Well, basically, starting with the Civil Rights Act in the 60s and everything every single component of the Civil Rights Act came at the expense of the concept of property. And you could say things like, well, telling people where they can sit on a bus or telling people who they can hire. These are things that don't lead to an optimally functioning society or equal justice and all that. And you can have that argument all day long, but the fact remains that you further your goals in eliminating discrimination by compromising on the concept of property. And
It should be noted with the 1964 Civil Rights Act and a lot of other government, so-called intervention. A lot of it was actually doing is taking government out of the system, taking it out of the sphere of influence. For example, Jim Crow laws in the South were government propelled. This was government enshrined, separate but equal. So slavery, another great example. This is the government perpetuating this discrimination. So then sometimes the government steps in and goes, oh wow, this is really horrible, let's get rid of these laws. And then usually, like say with the 1964 Civil Rights Act, then they might take that a step further. So they repeal the laws that the government has in the books. They say the government itself can no longer discriminate. That all makes sense to me. But then they might take that too far and they get involved in the private sector. But it should be known, before that, they were heavily involved in the private sector, perpetuating racism, perpetuating discrimination, right? It was government perpetuated in the first place.
So
much of it.
That's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. I don't know the name. What is it? Title 9 or Title 19 or whatever. What's that? Every employer says somewhere on some paperwork, we're an equal opportunity employer, and it's because of one of those old laws from the 60s. It was like I forget which title it was, but anyway, that is what I'm getting at in terms of the eliminating that kind of so-called discrimination came at the expense of the concept or the reality of private property. And you notice I don't use the word private property a lot because to me it's almost a redundant term. Like property means private, but that's a side shot. So like take for example a law that says you will not discriminate based on age, race, religion, gender, whatever the case may be. And this is for an employer. And why? And that to me is that's a bad concept, because discrimination in other circles can mean you can say like you're a very discriminating buyer of fine wine. You only purchase the finest and most aged and most perfectly. I don't even know what the hell the terms are and why.
Yeah, but it's being used differently in different contexts.
But it's not. The word means the same thing. And I'll use this in the example of employment. A very discriminating employer is only going to hire the exact person that they want to meet their exact needs. And maybe they can only find women to meet their needs. Maybe they can only find 6'5", 300-pound Icelandic world's strongest men champions. That's the needs of their employment. They are a highly discriminating buyer of the person's labor. So at the root, the terms mean the same thing.
At the root they mean the same thing, but they are used differently. But it doesn't matter. I don't want to go to argument about semantics.
Okay, so all that said about discrimination, I want to fast forward to, we started with things like you mentioned, Shane, the government repealing, and I will never object to a repealing of any law, ever. They're repealing laws that directly implemented state-driven racism.
Right, exactly.
That is a good, not even racism, state-driven discrimination in the sense of
you even want to use it in that sense, right? You're using it slightly differently than discrimination in this sense.
Well,
right.
It's because it has you can use the same exact word with the same exact meaning in a positive context or a negative context. But it means the same exact thing in either context. It's expressing your preference.
It doesn't mean the same exact thing because I don't even care about this. Let's just keep going.
Okay. So, fast forward to 2015 in Houston. And I didn't get to prepare the backgrounds as much as I wanted to, but the HERO ordinance, the Houston Equality and Rights Ordinance, this was just repealed via a ballot referendum last week in Houston. And I think it should be pretty clear why, after just some of the highest level details on what the heck this was. It was a sort of extend the anti-discrimination laws to the place where the town could fine you up to $5,000 for any perceived or alleged discrimination on the behalf of a business owner for a huge range of activities. And the one that got everybody's attention, because this has been in the news a lot, this has been a hot item, is talking about transgenders or anything associated with that in bathrooms. And this is the one that got everybody's attention. It says just as an example, a man who says, I wish, or I feel like a woman, or I wish to be known as a woman. That man says, okay, I wish to be known as a woman and I'm going to use the women's bathroom. And if a business owner refused him, he could be slapped with a $5,000 fine. That got a lot of people's attention in Houston. And it caused enough of an uproar to get on the ballot as a referendum. And I want to say something like 60 to 40% or something, it was overturned. So that to me is, and it kind of relates to, we talked about the zoning laws. If the zoning laws start with something very innocent, like, thou shalt not build a building that's 5,000 feet tall next to, in the middle of Willimantic. And then, it progresses to you can't paint something more than 199 square feet. The same thing happens with discrimination. And I was happy to see enough people wake up, enough people hang on to the basic concept of property and say, hey, wait a minute. If I don't want somebody to use my bathroom, end of story. And now, I'd say most folks really wouldn't take it that far, but that's how I take it. A lot of folks would say, well, okay, I can't prevent people of a certain race from using my bathrooms because that's just wrong, but the whole gender thing tied into bathrooms got enough people's attention. But at the base, it still ties back into property. And if a property owner wanted to say, you know what, I think you're a guy, and I don't want you going to the women's bathroom, get out of my store, enough people thought that should have been the end of the story. But plenty of people in the government in Houston did not.
Like in this case, I'm sympathetic to the people that say people should use river bath when they want. But this is not the right way to do it. Changing social norms, people as in general are less racist nowadays, less homophobic, right? And that just all happened through, people learning about other lifestyles, realizing, wait, they're people too, blah, blah, blah. But when you force things on people, when you say, when you force Reconstruction in the South after the Civil War, it didn't suddenly make those southern plantation owners go, oh yeah, black people are real people too. I get it now. Thanks, northern conquerors. Now I understand. No, it just makes them more resentful, right? So you're backfiring on what you're trying to do. You want people to be more open-minded towards other lifestyles, right? I'm actually kind of confused by this whole bathroom question. It's like, wait, are you quizzing them before they walk into the bathroom? I don't understand. They go use the stall. How do you even know, right? I don't even know. To me, it's kind of bizarre. But if you're trying to force the change on them, it's just going to make them more angry, more resentful, and you're not going to get what you want. The people that want that change, you're not going to get it this way. Because people will always find a way to get around the law. They're going to ignore the law if they really don't believe in it. Just like the person that doesn't want to make the cake for the gay wedding. You know what they're going to say when the law is in place and they really don't believe that? They're going to make up some excuse. Oh no, we're actually out of that cake style. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm actually busy. I've already planned another weddings. They're going to make some shit up to get around the law. So you're not achieving your goals anyway. Again, on a practical basis, it doesn't even work.
Right, and I don't think somebody should even have to make those excuses that, I don't have that cake for you. But that's the same topic, different scenario. Back to the scenario about the bathrooms, you started with, I think anybody should be able to use any bathroom they want. Can I assume that you mean with permission of the owner of the bathroom? Do you mean that caveat? Because if you do, then we agree.
Oh, well...
Because this is not about people using any bathroom they want. This is about people who own a bathroom getting to control who uses it and who doesn't.
I think owners should be open-minded to anyone using it, but I still respect their right to not be open-minded. If they choose to say, you know what, I don't want you in my bathroom for what I would consider arbitrary reasons, I think your reasons don't make sense, they're nonsensical. But you know what, I have no justification to put a gun to your head and say you have to follow my way. That's just worse, right? So that final thing is I can't solve my problem with force. I may not like say I don't like racism. Oh, I don't want to serve black. I'm part of the Klan. We have our Klan membership, and we have a store with the Klan, and we don't serve black people. I don't like that. I think you're idiots. I think you're stupid. But you know what? Me coming in there with weapons and guns, me force the government. That's not making the situation better. That's not helping people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So,
there's always going to be some people in the world that do things I don't like, right? So there's better solutions or there's worse solutions. Violence is your solution. It should always be the last resort. That's really the only time you should ever use that is when you have no choice. You know, someone's using violence against you, right? And that's what this ultimately comes down to. Just like when you talked about the man with the mural, right? Eventually, if he keeps disobeying, men with guns will come and take his shit, or even maybe take him, right? That's what's going to happen. That's not a solution I like. I like that solution.
And you know, you're talking about you disagree with you may disagree with a business owner's decision on who to allow to use their property, but you're not, you know, you don't want to. Like you just said, you don't want to bring force into this situation.
No.
You want to...
well, we'll stop other people from doing the same thing to me.
Right, but exactly. Well, that's a good, rational way to look at it. But what it comes down to, I think, is talking about perception in that it's like you own, you own your bot, you own you, I own me, you own you, and then there's a third party that is how everybody else perceives what we're doing. And when you say, when you want to talk about, I don't think, or I think owners should do X, Y, or Z. In the case of like this, this bathroom stuff, forget about the owners. The patrons of this person's business could very potentially be bothered by seeing a man in drag. Let's just assume it's someone that's obviously not. Or clearly you can say, okay, that person is not a biological female. The patrons of a business could perceive all sorts of negative things about having this person in their bathroom. So it's not just about the business owner's personal belief, but it comes down to them taking their personal belief and their judgment of how this situation will affect the rest of their property, meaning their whole business, and then deciding, say, you know what? Maybe they could say, I love everything about gender change and whatever the word is, but it just doesn't make sense for my business right now because you're scaring all my customers. That's a decision that needs to be left entirely up to the owner.
Yes, you're exactly. So the owner itself could be like, yeah, I don't have a problem with transgender people. It doesn't bother me, but a lot of my customers do, and my business will suffer, and maybe I won't be able to support my house, my family anymore. So I'm taking this route as a practical measure. Regardless of the law, whatever the law says, it's not going to matter to my customers. They're still going to think the way they think, right?
Right. So that's about accepting a third party's perception is theirs. They own that. It's like when we talked about the gay marriage thing. That was one of my points. Is that you can't legislate somebody else's perception. And that's kind of the same thing what you just said about if you want to change people's views, then persuade them. Don't force
persuade them.
So
because there's an immediate natural reaction when you're challenged. You fight back, right? Oh, you're wrong. Oh, really? Right. Right. So you
stiffen up.
Exactly. And this is the ultimate. Hey, if the government comes down on you, it generally makes things worse. That's the problem. Regardless of what you want to happen, regardless of the world you want to create, so often the government gets involved and screws things up. That's the issue.
Correct. Okay, so I would like to close out with one quick thought just to slip in here. We're almost out of time. And we talked a whole bunch about property this whole segment, and then I'd just like to ask the question to the listeners, and Shane, you're welcome to respond to answer this as well, is having this conversation from this perspective about property, does the concept of public property sound iffy to you? Or does it sound like, or it could potentially be problematic? And when I say public property, we've talked about previously on the show, where we've talked about society is not really a real entity. So society is just a collection of individuals. Therefore, society does not have, collective rights, so to speak, and it's not this third thing that gets created separate from the individuals. It's just a collection of the individuals.
It's not the Borg.
Right, exactly. We are not public property is a synonym for society-owned property. That means the same thing. So if if this has got you thinking about property a little bit, I hope you start to question the concept of public property. And is it really a long-term good thing or bad thing, or will it, in the end, just create more conflict than it could potentially resolve? That, I think, is my... that's my final thought on property. Shane, anything you'd like to add?
I've said enough. I could go off on another spiel on a few things, but
we're almost out of time.
Well, yeah, we'll save that for another time.
All right. Thank you guys for listening. This has been Brian and Shane at Local Liberty. You can check us out on Facebook and YouTube. Local Liberty, put it in quotes. And Mr. Cray and your family, I wish you the best of luck in fighting this ridiculous battle with the town. And I will put my voice behind yours and the others that have expressed their support for you, that it's your building, it's a nice mural, do whatever the hell you want with it. Have a good day.
It's a sad situation.
Yes, sir. Thanks for listening, guys. Take care.